All right, let's talk about something most of us have in our kitchens, in our coffee, pretty much everywhere: sugar. And we're going to ask a really simple question that has a very, very complicated answer. Is it possible that sugar is actually addictive? You know that feeling, right? You're just chilling, maybe watching a movie, you've got a pint of ice cream, and then you look down and it's just gone. The whole thing. Or maybe it's that afternoon craving for something sweet that you just can't kick. Yeah, we've all been there. For years, we've just chalked that up to having a sweet tooth or, maybe a lack of willpower. But what if it's not that simple? A whole lot of new science is asking a much bigger question. Could this actually be a sign of a real dependency? So today, we're going to be detectives. We are going to investigate the evidence. Okay, first things first. Section 1, the addiction question. Before we dive in, we have to get on the same page. We can't just throw a word like addiction around. We need to understand what it actually means from a scientific standpoint. So what is addiction, really? Well, the clinical term you'll hear is substance dependence. And let's be super clear, this isn't just about liking something a lot. This is a formal diagnosable condition. At its heart, it's about compulsively using something, even when it's causing you major, significant problems in your life. And there's actually a checklist for it. These 7 criteria, things like using more than you plan to, trying to stop but you can't, spending tons of time getting it or recovering from it, and even feeling withdrawal symptoms, this is the official list. It's the exact framework that tools like the Yale Food Addiction Scale use. For our investigation, this list is everything. It's the scientific yardstick we're going to use to measure the evidence. All right, section 2, building the case in rats. Now that we have our definition, we're going to turn to where a lot of this research began, in animal studies, specifically with rats, where scientists can control every little variable in a way you just can't with humans. So some really groundbreaking studies came out of Princeton University, and their setup was absolutely key to all of this. They didn't just give the rats unlimited sugar. Instead, they put them on a really specific schedule. For 12 hours, they had access to sugar water and their normal food. But then for the next 12 hours, the sugar was gone. This on-again, off-again access is what's called intermittent, and it's so important because it kind of mimics our own patterns of restricting and then binging. And what happened was pretty incredible. The rats on this schedule started showing behaviors that map almost perfectly to our addiction checklist. First, they started binging, drinking more and more sugar over time. Second, they showed actual signs of withdrawal. When the sugar was taken away, they got anxious, their teeth chattered, they were miserable. Third, they showed craving. If they were kept from sugar for a while, they'd work way, way harder to get it back. And fourth, and this is wild, they showed something called cross-sensitization. A history of binging on sugar made them hyperreactive to a tiny dose of amphetamine, suggesting the sugar was actually priming their brains for other drugs. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, the researchers concluded that under these very specific circumstances, rats could, in fact, become dependent on sugar. These weren't just random behaviors. They systematically lined up with the 4 main pillars of substance dependence. Okay, section 3, inside the brain's reward circuit. So seeing the rats act this way is one thing, but to really get what's going on, we have to look under the hood. What is happening inside the brain to drive all of this? And this is where it gets really, really compelling. The brain chemistry of these sugar-binging rats looked almost identical to the brain chemistry caused by drugs of abuse. Let me break it down. Addictive drugs cause a huge release of dopamine, the wanting chemical, in the brain's reward center. With this intermittent sugar schedule, the rats' brains did the exact same thing. Sugar also activated the brain's own opioid systems, which are tied to pleasure or liking. Over time, the brain's hardware, the dopamine receptors themselves, actually started to change. And then, during withdrawal, dopamine levels crashed, and another chemical linked to feeling awful, acetylcholine, went way up. It's the same neurochemical signature of withdrawal that you see with drugs like nicotine. Now, section 4, a vulnerable time, adolescence. The evidence in adult rats is strong for sure, but what happens if this sugar exposure happens during a really sensitive time for brain development? This is a huge question because we know that in humans, sugar intake peaks during the teenage years. So to figure this out, researchers set up another experiment. They gave rats access to sugar water all through their adolescent period. Then, they took the sugar away completely and just waited for the rats to become full adults before they ran a bunch of tests. The big question was, does that early life sugar consumption have any lasting effects? And the results were striking. The rats that had all that sugar as teenagers showed serious cognitive problems in adulthood, long after the sugar was gone. We're talking trouble with decision making, impaired memory, and when the scientists looked inside their brains, they found the physical proof. There were fewer of certain key brain cells in the areas responsible for memory and executive function. It seems that adolescent sugar binging can cause lasting physical damage to the brain. So this brings us to the billion-dollar question, doesn't it? Section 5, rewiring the human brain. I mean, this is all fascinating in rats, but does any of it actually apply to us, to people? Can sugar really rewire the human brain? Well, to find out, a group of researchers at the Yale School of Medicine designed a study to test this very thing in humans. And what they found is, well, it's pretty remarkable. So here's what they did. They took a group of people who were at a healthy weight, and for just 8 weeks, they had them eat one small daily snack that was high in fat and sugar. In this case, it was a yogurt. That's it, just one snack a day for 2 months. The lead researcher, Dr. Dana Small, summed up their findings with this really powerful line. She said, "Mere exposure to unhealthy food is sufficient to cause changes in the way the brain responds to food." Let that sink in. She's saying, just being around the food is enough to change your brain. Let's get into the specifics, because this is where it gets crazy. After only 8 weeks, the participants' brain reward circuits became way more sensitive to food cues. At the same time, their preference for healthy, low-fat foods actually went down. But here's the most incredible part. All of this happened without any significant weight gain. Their metabolic health didn't change. This suggests the effect is direct. The food itself was rewiring their brains to want more of it, independent of any other health effects. So, Section 6, the verdict on sugar. After looking at animal behavior, at neurochemistry, and at direct human studies, where does that leave us? What's the final verdict from our investigation? Let's recap real quick. We've seen that eating sugar in a certain way can produce all the classic signs of dependence in animals. We've seen that it does this by hijacking the exact same dopamine and opioid pathways in the brain that drugs target. And now we've seen clear evidence that even a short-term high-sugar snack can start to rewire the reward circuits in the human brain. The authors of that foundational rat study really put it best. Their conclusion was simple. In the aggregate, this is evidence that sugar can be addictive. When you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, the picture it paints is pretty clear. And this leaves us with one last really big thought. The science seems to be telling us this isn't just about willpower. If the food that surrounds us every day literally has the power to change our brain's wiring, to shift what we prefer, and to prime us to eat more, it kind of forces us to think differently about things like cravings and diet, right? It shifts the focus from just blaming ourselves to maybe questioning the environment that's shaping us. And that is definitely something to think about.